Scholastic Audio presents Geronimo Stilton, The Secret of Cacklefur Castle by Geronimo Stilton. Read for you by Bill Lobley. On a cheesy autumn afternoon. Let me introduce myself. My name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton. I run the Rodents Gazette, the most famous newspaper on Mouse Island. My office is in 17 Swiss Cheese Center. That is where I was when this terrifying tale began. It was a beautiful autumn afternoon at the end of October. "What a lovely, peaceful day," I said out loud. I spoke too soon. All of a sudden, the walls started to shake. Vroom! A loud roaring sound filled my office. My desk began to tremble. The pencil cup that my Aunt Sweetfur gave me for my birthday tumbled to the floor. "Holy cheese!" I cried. Vroom! The roaring got louder. Then a mouse on a motorcycle rode through my door. It was my sister Thea, of course. "Thea," I squeaked, "how many times do I have to tell you not to ride your motorcycle into my office?"
"I'm worried about you, Geronimo,"
Thea said.
"You have not written a new book in a long time. What's wrong?"
Thea is a special correspondent for the Rodents Gazette. Still, I did not appreciate her sticking her snout into my business. I pointed to the pile of papers on my desk. "I am too busy to write," I said. "There is lots of other work to do around here." Thea frowned.
"This is not like you, Geronimo. You always had time to write before,"
she scolded. Then she peeled out of the office, her tires squealing. I sighed and sat down at my desk. What could I do? I had to do my paperwork. My tail had just hit the chair when the door flew open a second time. This time, my cousin Trap burst in. He held a triple-decker cheese sandwich in one paw. "Geronimo, you have become lazier than a mouse with an automatic cheese slicer. You must write something new," he yelled. "I need to be inspired before I can write," I huffed. "I can't just pluck an idea out of my whiskers." The door flew open a third time. Pinky Pick, my very young assistant editor, bounded in.
"Hey, boss,"
she said cheerfully.
"I'm organizing a party for your next book. It's gonna be fabulous."
My tail twitched. I was starting to get annoyed. "But I haven't even written it yet," I squeaked. The door flew open a fourth time. It was my favorite nephew, Benjamin, on his way home from school.
"Hello, Uncle,"
he said.
"My friends are all asking when your next book is coming out."
I felt embarrassed. I hated to disappoint Benjamin. He gazed up at me with his sweet round eyes. "It will be out soon, Benjamin," I said. "I promise." Trap, Pinky, and Benjamin left me to my work. I finished the stack of papers on my desk, but I could not stop thinking about what everyone had said. What would my next book be about? The beautiful autumn afternoon turned into a beautiful, crisp evening. I looked outside my window and gazed out over New Mouse City. A cold wind blew up and lifted the cheddar-colored leaves off the ground. I watched them float and swirl in the night air. I needed an idea, but I didn't have any. I had to think. I sat down at my desk. A few hours later, I was still thinking. I had no ideas. Nothing. My mind was as dry as a stale slice of cheese. Feeling helpless, I started to sob. "It is no use," I moaned. "My writing days are over." A mysterious phone call. The phone rang, drowning out my sobs. Ring, ring, ring. I wiped the tears off my whiskers. Then I picked up the phone. "Hello," I said sadly. "Stilton speaking. Geronimo Stilton." "Is that you, my little cheese nip?" a sickly sweet voice asked. My fur stood on end. I knew that voice. It was Creepella von Cacklefur. I first met Creepella last October. She is not like other mice. She has shiny gray fur. Her eyes are as green as poisonous snakes. She wears a long purple gown and matching purple paw-nail polish. Creepella's father, Boris, lives in a funeral parlor at 33 Dark Grave Drive. Creepella lives in a crypt in the cemetery. Her mouse hole is filled with cobwebs and dead flowers. All that is pretty spooky, but here is the scariest part of all. Creepella wants me to be her boyfriend. "Hello, Creepella," I said nervously. "I need you, Geronimo," Creepella said. "My grandfather, Professor Frankenstein, has died. His will is being read tomorrow night. I need to leave for Cacklefur Castle right away. It's in the Valley of the Vain Vampires. I need you to come with me, my little batwing." Cacklefur Castle? The Valley of the Vain Vampires? I hate things that are spooky. But Creepella was not finished yet. "It will be wonderful, Geronimo," she said. "I'll introduce you to my family." Her family? I had already met her father, and he was creepy enough. I really did not want to meet any more Cacklefurs. "I'm sorry, Creepella," I said quickly. "I can't go with you. I am busy, working on my next book." "Really?" Creepella asked. She sounded suspicious. "What is it about?" I didn't know what to say. It's a secret," I lied. Creepella didn't buy it. "Your book can wait, my little toadstool. I will be at your office with my hearse faster than a spider can spin a web. So get ready." Then she hung up. Creepella von Cacklefur. Who is she? She is a special effects designer for scary films and haunted houses. Her father is Boris von Cacklefur. Creepella is an enchanting and mysterious mouse with a pet bat named Bitewing. Her secret: she has a crush on Geronimo Stilton. Boris von Cacklefur. Who is he? He runs Fabumouse Funerals, a funeral home at 33 Dark Grave Drive. His hobbies include writing romantic poetry and painting graveyard scenes. His secret: he is in love with Tina Spicytail, Geronimo's grandfather's cook. I had to do something. My whiskers were quivering with fright. I did not want to see Creepella. I did not want to ride in a hearse. I did not want to go to Cacklefur Castle. I did not want to meet Creepella's family. I quickly thought up a plan. I put on a pair of dark glasses, a hat, and a raincoat. Then I scurried to the back door, opened it, and someone tripped me. I fell right on my snout. I looked up into Creepella's green eyes. "I know you so well, my little pumpkin," she said, smiling. "I knew you would put on a disguise and try to escape out the back." Creepella picked me up and shoved me into her hearse. "Help!" I shrieked. "I'm being mouse-napped!" I was in trouble. Big trouble. Creepella slid into the driver's seat. "How do you like my hearse?" she asked. "Of course, it doesn't normally carry living mice, but I'm sure you'll be comfortable." "Putrid cheese puffs! Get me out of here!" I screamed. Creepella just smiled. "You can't escape, Geronimo," she said. "You might as well get comfortable." How could I be comfortable in a hearse? With Creepella? "Let me out!" I yelled. Creepella winked at me. "You are going to love Cacklefur Castle, my little ghosty-woasty." Then she began to sing a little tune. "We are going to Cacklefur Castle. It's creaky and dreary and grey. We're going to Cacklefur Castle, and forever and ever we'll stay." I sighed and put on my seatbelt. There was no escape. Only one thought comforted me. If I ever did get home, I would definitely have something to write about. The Valley of the Vain Vampires. We drove all through the night. By the time dawn came, we had reached a gloomy valley. Thick trees with twisted branches grew all around. I looked away from the trees into the valley. The mountainside was shaped like a giant skull. A creepy castle with lots of towers sat on top of it. It looked so spooky. I knew it had to be Cacklefur Castle. The Valley of the Vain Vampires. 1. Shrieking Peak. 2. Screaming Peak. 3. Scaredy Cat Mountain. 4. Mangy Mouse Mountain. 5. Cacklefur Castle. 6. Rancid Rat River. 7. Nightmare Woods. 8. Sleazy Snot Stream. 9. Toadspit Brook. 10. Putrid Pond. 11. Ghoul's Gully. 12. Dangerous Dale. A muddy moat surrounded the castle. Creepella stopped the car in front of a drawbridge blocked by a gate. The gate was marked with a carved wooden sign. Cacklefur Castle. Creepella leaned out of the car and rang a bell on the gate.
Meow.
I nearly jumped out of my fur. "What was that? I want to go home!" I squeaked. Creepella laughed. "Calm down, my little cheesecake. It's only the doorbell." Someone inside the castle lowered the drawbridge. As we drove across the moat, I thought I saw 2 eyes gleaming from the depths of the murky water, but it must have been my imagination. Right? Welcome to Cacklefur Castle. "Welcome to Cacklefur Castle!" Creepella shrieked. She parked the car, and we walked up to the front door. I could make out a plant next to the doorway. A big plant. It had a thorny stem. It had spiky leaves. And when I looked closer, I saw the plant had white, sharp, shiny teeth. "Rat-munching rattlesnakes!" I cried. The plant leaned over and sniffed me. Then it bit off one of my buttons. "Geronimo, meet chompers. Our watch plant," Creepella said. The Cacklefur watch plant. Who is she? Her scientific name is Horrifica dentibula. Her nickname is Chompers. She has very sharp teeth at the end of her flower. Her secret: she owns a collection of toothbrushes that she guards ferociously. I quickly turned on my cell phone. I'm just going to call my sister, I said casually. I want to tell her I've been mousenapped. That I'll be away for a while. Creepella's green eyes flashed. She snatched the phone away. No phone calls, she snapped. They are forbidden here. She threw my cell phone to the plant. Here, Chompers, she said. A little snack for you. The plant gulped down my phone in one mouthful. I began to lose hope. I was going to be trapped in Cacklefur Castle forever. Creepella stepped up to the door. I followed her. I set my paw on the doormat, and it cried out, "Ouch!" I jumped back. What kind of a place was this? Creepella opened the door. We stepped into an enormous hall with marble floors. Tall windows let in the morning sunlight. Paintings of the Cacklefur family's ancestors lined the walls. The Cacklefur Ancestors. 1. Abracadabra von Cacklefur, a medieval magician famous for his love potions. 2. Swashbuckler von Cacklefur, a knight who fought against that mythical monster, the three-headed cat. 3. Creepella von Cacklefur, a charming rat. Many a rodent lost his head over Creepella. Really, she had them all beheaded. Creepella turned her snout to mine. It's so good to be home, she said with a sigh. How about the kiss, my little zombie-womby? I took a step back. A cold breeze blew through the windows. The curtains whirled in the air like ghosts. Creepella turned to the window. This room has a lovely view of the graveyard. Isn't it romantic? I want to go home, I wailed. Then I heard a loud cough. I turned around. A gray rat stood there. He held a candelabra in his paw. He was tall and thin, with a pointy snout and whiskers that were waxed and curled. What a curious-looking rodent! I can't believe my ears! This is Boneham, our butler, Creepella said. How are you today, Boneham? The thin rat bowed. Very bad, thank you, Miss von Cacklefur. Then he looked up and saw me. Good heavens, we have a guest, he said, shocked. This is Geronimo Stilton, Creepella declared. We are going to be married. I almost fainted. Well, that's not, I stammered. I mean, Creepella and I will see you later, my little monster pie, Creepella said. She turned to the butler. Take care of him for me, please. I will do my worst, Miss Creepella, the butler said. Inside Cacklefur Castle. 1. Muddy moat where the thing lives. 2. Drawbridge. 3. Front door. 4. Chompers. 5. Front hall. 6. Drawing room. 7. Library. 8. Hall of Mummies. 9. Dining hall. 10. Safe. 11. Watchtower. 12. Weapons room. 13. Inner courtyard. 14. Greenhouse. 15. Castle grounds. 16. Crocodile pool and piranha tank. 17. Bedrooms. 18. Guest bedroom. 19. Kitchen and pantry. Boneham led me down a very long, very narrow, and very dark hallway. He pointed out rooms in the castle as we walked.
"Over there is the greenhouse," he explained. "That is where we grow the flesh-eating strawberries, my pride and joy. And at the end of this hall you'll find the library, the gym, the crocodile pool, and the piranha tank."
I could not believe my ears. What kind of a house has a crocodile pool?
"And these stairs lead to the castle dungeons,"
Boneham continued. My stomach rumbled. I had not eaten for hours and hours. "Where is the kitchen?" I asked. The butler pointed to a door.
"In there, but please make sure you call it kitchen with a capital K. Its feelings get hurt if you don't."
Then the butler coughed.
"Mr. Stilton," he began, "I have heard you are a publisher. I am working on a masterpiece. It's entitled The Adventures of the Cacklefur Family. So far I have written 365 volumes. Would you mind taking a look at it?"
I gave him a card. "Give me a call when you are finished writing," I told him. Boneham. Who is he? Boneham has been the Cacklefur family butler for ages. He is very devoted to the Cacklefurs and calls them the family. He is a snob, from the tip of his tail to the tips of his curled whiskers. His secret: his socks stink. Here lies the guest. Boneham stopped in front of a purple door engraved with a skull. A brass plaque on the door read, "Guest Room." Boneham opened the door, and I peeked inside. It was a strange-looking room. Thick purple velvet covered the walls. It reminded me of the inside of a pricey coffin. Creepy. The dresser was shiny and black. The silver handles looked like coffin handles. A large bed with 4 posts sat in the center of the room. Bats and spiders were carved into the posts. Over the bed hung a sign. "Here lies the guest." I gulped and stepped inside. How was I supposed to get any sleep in this chamber of horrors? I shivered at the thought. Boneham cleared his throat.
"We could certainly use a fire on this chilly autumn day."
I turned toward the fireplace. There was no fire. The butler spoke again, more loudly this time.
"I said we could certainly use a fire."
Once again, I was confused. Who was Boneham talking to? Finally, Boneham began to yell.
"We need a F-I-R-E! A fire! It is cold enough to freeze your whiskers in here!"
Suddenly, a crackling fire began to burn in the fireplace. I stepped back. shocked. What had happened? Was this some kind of magic?
"I'm sorry, sir," Boneham said. "The fireplace is a bit deaf. It is more than 300 years old, you see."
I took another step back and found myself standing next to a tall mirror. At least I thought it was a mirror. I could not see my reflection in it. "Is something wrong with the mirror?" I asked.
"Oh, the mirror has probably just gone somewhere to take a nap," Boneham answered. "It's very lazy, sir. So sorry."
A deaf fireplace? A lazy mirror? What kind of a place was this? Boneham walked toward the door.
"One more thing, sir," he said. "Be careful of the carpet. It's a real paw-puller, and if you need anything, just yell."
The butler left and closed the door. I looked down at the carpet, curious. Without warning, it pulled out from under me. Splat! I fell flat on my snout. Then the carpet rolled up with me inside it. Boneham opened the door.
"I told you, sir, the carpet is a real paw-puller."
Then he shut the door behind him. I could not take it any more. I was hungry, I was tired, and now I was rolled up in a paw-pulling carpet. "I want to go home," I wailed. Earthworm liver and leech lard. I unrolled myself from the carpet. There was no way I could sleep in this awful room. I decided to search for something to eat instead. I was so hungry I would have given my left paw for a cheese sandwich. As I walked down the hallway, a delicious smell wafted toward me. My whiskers twitched. Sniff, sniff. It smelled like stew. I followed my snout until I found the kitchen. It was an enormous room with a brick ceiling and stone floor. Chef Stew Rat. Who is he? The Cacklefur family cook. He loves the opera. He is always trailed by a cloud of gnats. That's probably because he hasn't washed since Christmas. Exactly which Christmas, nobody knows. His secret: he dreams of selling his stew around the world, and he is in love with Madame Latoum. I saw a rat stirring a pot over the stove. If I were being polite, I might describe him as a heavy rat with a stained apron and waxed whiskers. But I was tired and hungry, and not feeling very polite, and so I'll tell you that he was a very fat sewer rat with a filthy, smelly apron and greasy whiskers. Not at all the kind of a rat a mouse of refined taste likes to see in a kitchen. The cook was humming a tune while he stirred the pot. "Open your snout, come and pig out. My stew is a treat, the best thing you'll eat. Eat and eat until you're fat, and you will be a happy rat." The cook saw me and beckoned me closer. Now I could see a cloud of tiny bugs flying around his head. He held out a spoon. "Do me a favor and taste this," he said. I was so hungry I slurped the stew right from the spoon. "Very good," I said, licking my whiskers. "In fact, it's excellent." The cook grinned. "Nobody makes stew like mine. It's the best around." He grabbed a bowl and filled it to the brim for me. I grabbed it eagerly. Maybe this trip wasn't so bad after all, I thought. The delicious stew made up for all of the horrible things I had found so far. The stew is quite wonderful, I said. Would you mind telling me what's in it?
Of course not,
the cook said, beaming.
Let's see. There is earthworm liver, leech lard, black scorpion claws, wasp stingers, bat thighs, crushed red termites, shark fins, piranha teeth, iguana claws, viper venom, snake spleen, plus a little salt and pepper.
My stomach lurched. What? The cook smiled. He grabbed a cockroach crawling across the stove. Then he tossed it into the stew.
How do you think my stew got so good? He asked. It is because I keep adding surprise ingredients.
I watched in horror as he took off one of his smelly socks and threw it into the stew.
Just a little bit of flavor, he said. Don't want to overdo it. He pulled out the sock. I will tell you a secret, he whispered. This stew has been simmering in this pot for the last 500 years. I inherited it from my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather.
I felt betrayed. I felt sick. I felt dizzy. I want to go home, I wailed. Just then, a loud female voice rang through the kitchen.
Chef Stew Rat!
The cook turned around. His eyes gleamed with excitement.
Madame Latoum!
He cried. Sing for me, my little were-canary. Madame Latoum. Who is she? The housekeeper of the Cacklefur family. She plays the violin and collects dolls. Her hairstyle hides her ferocious were-canary. It's like a werewolf, but it's a canary, and a lot scarier when the moon is full. Her secret: she is in love with Professor Frankenstein. A very strange mouse entered the kitchen. She wore an old-fashioned dress trimmed with lace. A bat-shaped necklace hung around her neck. She had a huge pile of white hair on top of her head. When she got closer, I noticed she had a strange odor, like dead flowers. But that was not the only strange thing about Madame Latoum. I swore I heard a growl when she came in. But I could not tell where the sound was coming from. Madame Latoum smiled at the cook.
Chef Stew Rat, I need today's menu,
she said. Of course, Madame Latoum, said the cook in a sweet voice. You do look lovely today. Here is the menu. Grilled stew with toadstools. Stew pie with fried stew sticks. Scrambled stew with stew sauce. Stew ice cream.
Thank you, Chef,
Madame Latoum said. She turned and left the kitchen, and as she walked away, she sang a strange little song.
Sing for me, my dearie. Sing for me, my little were-canary.
As she sang, I saw a little yellow bird pop out of Madame Latoum's hair. The bird looked at me and growled. I shivered. I didn't know what a were-canary was, but I was sure it wasn't nice. You're looking so pale, Chivorine. I left the kitchen, rubbing my grumbling belly. Somehow, I had to find a way out of Cacklefur Castle. I opened the first door I could find and stepped inside. I found myself in an enormous hall filled with strange-looking rodents. I looked down at my paws. The marble floor was lizard green. I looked up. Candlelight cast ghostly shadows on the walls. I felt a paw on my shoulder and squeaked in surprise. It was Creepella. "Hello, my little zombie-womby," she said, stroking my whiskers. "How do you like the castle?" "I want to go home!" I cried. Creepella ignored me. She grabbed my paw and dragged me into the hall. "I'm going to introduce you to the family, Geronimo," she said. "Please don't embarrass me." Before I could reply, a teenage mouse ran up to us. She looked like a smaller version of Creepella. She had the same shiny gray fur, and she seemed very fond of the color purple. She wore a purple shirt and jeans. She carried a bat-shaped purse, and perched on top of her shoulder was a real live chameleon.
Hello, Auntie.
The little mouse said.
How nice to see you.
Creepella hugged her. "Shiverine, you look pale. How lovely."
Thanks,
answered Shiverine.
I love your dress. It's so mysterious.
Shiverine. Who is she? She is Creepella's favorite niece. She copies Creepella in every way. She has a pet chameleon named Moldy. She dreams of working in the world of fashion. Her secret: she keeps a diary hidden under her mattress.
Creepella pushed me forward. "Shiverine, I'd like you to meet Geronimo Stilton. We are going to be married." "That's not exactly—" I began, but Shiverine interrupted me.
When is the wedding?
She squeaked. "Never!" I screamed. Enough was enough. "Don't listen to Geronimo," Creepella said, taking her niece's arm. "He's just a little tired from our trip. Now tell me, do you have a mouse friend yet?" The two mice walked away, chattering. I looked around the hall, hoping to find a friendly face or a way to escape. I saw something that might help. An old-fashioned phone hung on the wall. I crept over to it as quiet as a mouse and quickly dialed my sister Thea.
"Hello, Thea," I whispered. "It's me, Geronimo. I've been mousenapped."
Suddenly, the phone began to scream.
Put down the phone, Cheddarface. No phone calls allowed. No phone calls allowed.
Creepella ran over and hung up the phone. "Well done, telephone," she told the phone. "Geronimo was being very naughty. Very naughty indeed." "I want to go home," I wailed. The mice in the hall all looked at me.
"That Geronimo Stilton is a strange mouse," they whispered.
Snip and Snap, the Spooky Twins.
Snip and Snap. Who are they? These twins are very smart and very good with computers. They are exactly alike, perfectly mean, and truly annoying. Their secret: they own a collection of tricks that they use to scare guests staying at Cacklefur Castle.
Boneham walked into the hall carrying a gong. He put earplugs in his ears. Then he struck the gong with a mallet. The loud sound rang through the hall. Gong! I held my ears and followed everyone into the dining hall. Chef Stew-Rat was wheeling in a tray with the stew pot.
"Stew is ready!" he cried. "Come and get it!"
My stomach lurched at the thought of more stew. As everyone scrambled for a seat at the long dining table, I saw my chance. I quickly ducked under the table. Unfortunately, I wasn't alone. I found myself staring at two young mice who looked exactly alike. At first, they did not look like the other Cacklefurs. They both had very neat hair and very normal-looking clothes. But they each had a wicked gleam in their eyes. I suddenly heard Creepella shout, "I just looked out the window! Who painted flowers on my hearse? If I catch him, I'll tear his whiskers out, one by one!"
It must have been Snip and Snap,
said Madame Latoum. Beside me, the twin mice began to giggle. Kafka, the faithful cockroach. Before I could question the boys, I felt something lick my ankle. Then I heard a bark. "Arf! Kafka has sniffed out something!" shrieked Creepella. I turned around and looked at my ankle. A huge cockroach sat there. It was sitting on its hind legs and barking like a dog. "Arf! Arf! Arf! Quiet!" I hissed. But it was too late. Madame Latoum lifted the tablecloth.
"Come on out, you little scoundrels!"
she commanded. Snip and Snap crawled out from under the table. I had no choice but to follow them. Creepella shrieked, "My house used to be so gloomy, and now it looks cheerful!"
"He did it,"
said Snip, pointing to Snap.
"He did it,"
said Snap, pointing to Snip. The boys looked at each other. Then they pointed at me.
"No, he did it,"
they squeaked. "I did not!" I protested. Creepella batted her green eyes. "Naughty boy, Geronimo. You must give me a kiss, and I'll forgive you." Before I could protest, she puckered up her snout and kissed me. Kafka the cockroach. Who is he? The much-loved pet cockroach of the Cacklefur family. His cockroach house is in the courtyard, but he loves to sleep in Shiverine's bed. She takes him for a walk every morning. His secret: he can't get enough cockroach crunchies. The Joking Ghost. Bowie the Poltergeist. Who is he? The ghost of Cacklefur Castle. This young ghost is a poltergeist, which means he likes to play tricks on everyone. His secret: he is afraid of scary movies, but he watches them anyway. Everyone sat down at the table, but the moment my bottom touched the seat, there was a loud, embarrassing noise. "Excuse me," I said, turning bright red. "I didn't mean—" Then I realized what had happened. Someone had put a whoopee cushion on my chair. "Who put this here?" I shrieked.
"It wasn't us this time,"
said Snip and Snap. I didn't believe them, but they were telling the truth.
"It was Bowie, sir,"
explained Boneham.
"He is the castle ghost. He loves to play jokes. He's very playful."
Just then, my water glass floated off the table. Then, the water poured onto my lap.
"Bowie seems to like you a lot, sir,"
said the butler. I shuddered. What would Bowie do if he didn't like me? Everyone began to eat their stew. I looked into my bowl and frowned. Inside the bubbling goo, I saw one of my own buttons. I saw a yellow canary feather, too. I pushed away the bowl in disgust. "Excuse me, Chef," I asked. May I have something else to eat? Salad, maybe? Chef Stu-Rat looked angry.
Are you saying you don't like my stew?
Everyone at the table stared at me.
That Geronimo Stilton is a strange mouse,
they murmured. The chef sighed.
I can make you a salad if you want. How about some poison ivy with slime dressing, or sewer algae with moldy mushrooms and some nice pond scum on top?
I turned as pale as a piece of mozzarella. How about some fruit instead?
I have just the thing,
Chef Stu-Rat said.
How about a bowl of flesh-eating strawberries? Their teeth are nice and sharp.
I turned even paler. No, thank you, I said weakly.
Well, what will it be?
Asked the chef.
Some snake steak or some nice toxic tiger fish? It's fresh from the moat.
I think I'll just skip supper, I said. My poor stomach growled. Have some toadstool tea, my little batwing, said Creepella. It will make your tummy feel better. The thing has a tummy ache.
The thing. What is it? Nobody knows. If they did, it wouldn't be called the thing. Nobody has ever seen it, but everyone knows it is enormous. It lives in the moat and eats whatever crosses its path. It's secret. The thing is very shy. That is why nobody has ever seen it.
I turned down the toadstool tea and left. I was walking down the hallway when suddenly the castle walls began to shake. Then I heard a strange rumbling sound. My fur stood on end. Putrid cheese puffs, I cried. It's an earthquake! Boneham the butler walked up to me.
It is not an earthquake, sir. It is the thing.
Boneham led me to the window. He pointed to the green, slimy moat that surrounded the castle.
The thing has a tummy ache, he explained.
What thing? I squeaked. I leaned out the window for a better look. The moat gurgled and bubbled below. Boneham pulled me back.
Be careful, sir. The thing will eat anything it can. Don't get too close to the moat. We've lost many guests that way.
Thank you, Boneham, I stammered. I scurried back to my room. My mind was racing faster than a hamster on a wheel. Cacklefur Castle was too much for me. The mouse-eating thing in the moat was the last straw. There had to be some way to escape. I looked out the window. I was afraid of heights, but I was not too far from the ground. Maybe, just maybe, I could... I put my plan into action. I took the sheets off the bed. I tied them together to make one long rope. I tied one end of the rope to the bedpost. Then I dropped the rest out the window. I took a deep breath and began to climb down. Suddenly, the sheets began to swing back and forth. Above me, the window shutters began to rattle. Then the window, yes, the window, began to tease me.
Nya, 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 nya.
The window sang. I gripped the sheets tightly. I did not want to fall. I want to go home, I screamed. Below me, I saw Boneham driving up in a strange car. There was a big net attached to it.
Hold on, sir,
he called up. The sheets twisted once more. I lost my grip. I fell. Plop! and I landed safely in Boneham's net. The net dropped me on the grass. Kafka the cockroach ran up. He lifted his leg and peed on my pants. "Why is this happening to me?" I sobbed. "I am a good mouse. I don't deserve this." I ran back up to my room and jumped in bed. I pulled the covers over my head. Maybe this was all just a bad dream. But it wasn't. The mattress began to tickle my tail. I jumped out of bed. I decided to take a hot bath instead to calm my nerves. I turned on the water. Then I jumped back. The water was steaming hot. I tried another knob. This time, the water was freezing. Actual ice cubes floated on the water. The bathtub laughed at me. "Ha, ha, ha!" I gave up on the bath. But there was one thing I really had to do. I slowly walked up to the toilet. I had to go, but I was a little nervous. What would the toilet be like? It looked scary. It was black, with skulls and crossbones on the tank. Slowly, I lifted the lid. The toilet began to gurgle.
"Use me if you dare. You're in for quite a scare. Maybe I'll flood the room or suck you to your doom."
My whiskers quivered in fear. I backed away slowly. The toilet kept singing. The window shutters kept clapping. The bed kept laughing. Then the closet joined in. It began opening and shutting its door. Bang, 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 bang. I covered my ears and ran out of the guest room. "I want to go home!" I wailed. The attack of the flesh-eating strawberries. I bumped into the twins in the hall. "Where is the bathroom?" I asked them. Snip and Snap pointed to a nearby door.
It's in there.
"Thank you," I said. How polite. But when I opened the door, I saw I wasn't in a bathroom. I was in a greenhouse. Clay pots with small green plants filled the room. For a moment, I thought I heard a noise. Munch, munch, munch. I moved closer to the plants. They looked so pretty. Each plant was loaded with red, sweet-smelling fruit. "Strawberries," I said. "At last, something normal to eat." I reached out with my paw to pick a strawberry, and it bit me. "Ow!" I cried. I looked down. The little strawberry had a mouth and tiny teeth. "I want to go home," I wailed. All at once, the strawberries jumped out of their pots. They began to chase me. Munch, munch, munch. Their little teeth chomped as they got closer and closer. Luckily, at that moment, Boneham ran in. He was carrying a can of sardines. "Dinner time, my sweets," he called out. The strawberries ran to Boneham. He fed them the sardines. They gobbled them up like a pack of cats at a mouse buffet. I sighed with relief and headed for the door. It was then that I noticed a sign on the wall. "Flesh-eating strawberries. Enter at your own risk. But you don't really want to enter, do you?" Then I heard a giggle. I turned to see Snip and Snap. "You rotten little ratlets!" I cried. The twins just laughed and ran away. I scurried down the hall, looking for a bathroom door. In the dim light, I saw a small yellow figure flying toward me. It was Madame Latoum's were-canary. The little bird chomped on my finger with its sharp beak. "Ow!" I squeaked. Madame Latoum stepped out of a door.
Come here, my little songbird,
she said. The were-canary flew to Madame Latoum and disappeared inside her huge hairdo. I wanted to tell her what I thought of her little terror, but I really had to find a bathroom now. I looked at the nearest door. It had a sign with teeny-weeny print on it.
Do not open this door. Don't even think about it. Really, don't try it.
Boneham ran up to me.
Please, don't open this door, sir, he said. We have lost many guests this way.
But what is inside? I asked. Boneham's whiskers twitched.
I do not know, sir, he said, but I am sure it is not very nice.
A surprise in the dark. I had had enough surprises for one day. I found another door. This one did not have any signs on it. I opened it. I stepped into a dark room. I felt on the wall for a light switch, but there was none. Then I made out a shape in the dark. A toilet! Relieved, I sat down and began to take care of business. When I was done, I reached out to grab the toilet paper. I touched something that felt like toilet paper, so I gave it a pull. I flushed the toilet. Then I remembered I had a small flashlight in my pocket. I took it out, turned it on, and found myself face to face with a mummy! Help! I shrieked. With horror, I realized I hadn't found toilet paper at all. I had found the wrappings of a mouse mummy. My paws trembled. I dropped the flashlight. The light went out. Help! I screamed again. The door opened. Creepella stepped inside. There you are, my little ghosty woasty, she said. What are you doing in the staff bathroom? This is where my grandfather kept his mummies. He was fixing them. You didn't hurt them, did you? I was still in shock. Mummies? I stammered. Suddenly, I felt someone step on my tail. I whirled around. Snip and Snap stood there, giggling.
He did it,
said Snip.
he did it.
Said Snap. I want to go home, I wailed. The Cacklefur family gathered in the hallway. They shook their heads. That Geronimo Stilton is a strange mouse, they cried. I want to go home. Still shaking, I made my way back to the guest room. At least there were no mummies there. But I got lost in the long hallways. As I searched for my door, I noticed something on the floor. I reached down and picked it up. It was an old piece of paper. I raised it to my snout. It was a treasure map. Even though I was tired and scared and hungry, I had to follow the map. I was too curious to resist. I took 3 steps to the right, then 2 steps to the left, then 1 more step to the right. I found myself facing a big stone in the wall with the letter T carved in it. T for treasure? Excited, I pushed on the stone and fell down a tunnel. I tumbled down, down, down. Finally, I found myself in a cold, dark room. I stood up and brushed the dust off my fur. I looked around. Cobwebs dangled from the corners. A grinning skeleton hung from the wall. I took a step back and fell right into a coffin. I jumped out and bumped into a suit of armor. I fell back and tripped over a tombstone. I stood up and found myself holding a mummy. Then I heard a ghostly wail. Boo! I want to go home! I screamed. Suddenly, all the lights came on. In the light, I could see that everything was fake. The dust was made of flour. The cobwebs were made of cotton candy. The skeleton was made of plastic. The coffin was made of rubber. The suit of armor was made of soda cans. The tombstone was made of cardboard. The mummy was made of toilet paper. And the ghostly sound was coming from a speaker on the wall. I also saw a sign on the wall.
Snip and Snap's collection of tricks. Paws off. That means you.
I should have known. Those twin terrors were behind this. I was fed up. I found a staircase and ran up the steps. Snip and Snap were in the hall, smiling. I know you left that treasure map for me to find, I growled.
He did it,
said Snip.
He did it,
said Snap. Boneham shook his head.
Snip and Snap have struck again, sir.
Professor Frankenstein's will. I was looking for my room again when I noticed that all of the Cacklefurs had left the dining room table. They were gathered in front of the fireplace. Suddenly, I remembered why Creepella had brought me here in the first place. For the reading of her grandfather's will. They say that curiosity kills the cat, but I am a mouse after all, and a very curious one at that. I stood in the background and listened to what the family was saying. Poor Professor Frankenstein, said one mouse. Remember how much he loved mummy jokes?
Yes, he told many mummy jokes,
said another.
Many mummy jokes.
Maybe too many mummy jokes.
The chattering stopped when a plump rodent walked in.
It's Byron Bad News, the family lawyer,
the Cacklefurs whispered. Byron Bad News was an unpleasant-looking mouse. He carried a small silver box shaped like a coffin. The lawyer cleared his throat.
Attention, Cacklefurs, he announced. The moment you have been waiting for is here.
Byron tapped the lid of the coffin.
In this box, I have...
He paused dramatically.
Professor Frankenstein's will.
The family began to chatter in excitement. What would you do if he left you the castle? Asked one mouse.
I would turn it into a horror museum,
replied another mouse. I would turn it into an amusement park, said another.
I would open a vacation lodge,
said another. Chef Stew Rat tapped his paw impatiently on the floor.
Cheese chunks! He cried. Are you going to read the will or what? I have to go stir my stew.
Byron Bad News sniffed.
You seem to have your tail in a twitch, he said. Very well. I will read the will. Cacklefur Castle goes to...
Byron Bad News lifted the lid of the coffin. A stream of black ink shot out and squirted him in the snout.
Who did this?
He bellowed.
He did it,
said Snip.
He did it,
said Snap. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck the castle. Thunder shook the castle walls. Boom! All the candles blew out. The room was as dark as the inside of a tomcat's tummy. An icy wind swirled through the room. It froze the tips of my whiskers. Isn't this fun? Creepella asked, grabbing my paw. "I told you you'd have a good time at Cacklefur Castle." A good time? This was the worst time I'd ever had in my life. "I want to go home!" I wailed. At that moment, the doors to the dining hall flew open. A shadowy figure stood in the doorway. "It's Grandfather's ghost!" the Cacklefurs all cried at once.
"I'm not a ghost," said the figure. "I am alive and squeaking, my dear family."
The lights came back on. A small, skinny mouse stood in the doorway. His face was the color of moldy cheese. The white fur on his head stuck straight up. He wore a stained white lab coat. He walked with a limp and leaned on a cane.
Professor Frankenstein. Who is he? A scientist who studies ancient Egypt. He is an expert on mummies and tombs. He is a little clumsy and has had many accidents in his lab. So far, he has lost an eye, an ear, a little finger, and a toe. His secret: he dreams of being a stand-up comic. As he limped closer, I got a better look at him. One of his eyes was made of glass. Professor Frankenstein adjusted his false teeth. Then he gazed at his family.
"What a nice family reunion," he said. "Why does everyone look so sad? You look like you're at a funeral. Ha! Grandfather, you're alive!"
shouted the Cacklefurs.
"Ha ha, of course I am,"
Professor Frankenstein cackled.
"I was picking mushrooms in Nightmare Wood. I fell asleep under the tree of eternal rest. If a bat had not peed on my snout, I would never have woken up."
The mice all nodded their heads in surprise. The professor waved his cane in the air.
"Sorry to disappoint you, family,"
he squeaked.
"Cacklefur Castle is mine, so paws off, or you'll be sorry."
Everyone in the dining hall looked slightly afraid. Professor Frankenstein smiled.
"Don't look so glum. I have some blood-curdling jokes to tell you. You will laugh your heads off." Professor Frankenstein's blood-curdling jokes. What is Count Dracula's favorite dog? A bloodhound. Ha 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 ha. Where do ghosts go on vacation? To the Dead Sea. Ha 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 ha. Why was the skeleton afraid of the dark? Because it didn't have any guts. Ha ha. What kind of music does a mummy like best? Rap music. Ha ha. Why do ghosts make good cheerleaders? Because they have a lot of spirit. A skeleton went to see the doctor. The doctor opened the door. He looked at the skeleton and said, "Aren't you a little late?"
Speaking of mummies. The professor slapped me on the shoulder.
"Did you like my jokes?" he asked. "And who are you, anyway?"
"The name is Stilton, Geronimo Stilton," I said. Creepella walked up and kissed me on the snout.
"Isn't he sweet?" she asked. "He and I are getting married."
I cleared my throat. "Actually, We are not. But Professor Frankenstein interrupted me. So, this is your latest victim. I mean, fiancé, he said. What is your name again? Gabriel? Geronimo, I said. He pinched my cheek. So, when will the wedding be, Gideon? Never, I said firmly. He ignored me. Well then, Gerald, you had better treat my little Creepella well. If anyone dares to treat my granddaughter badly, I will turn him into a mummy. He waved his cane. The Cacklefurs all agreed.
That's right. We pity the mouse who mistreats our Creepella.
I was quaking in my fur. Of course, Professor, I said. I will treat Creepella well. Rodent's word of honor. Professor Frankenstein pulled a watch from his pocket. I must go, my dear Gary, he said. The mummy of the great Tutankhamun has arrived. I must get to work. Before the professor left, he told another joke. Why did the werewolf cross the road? To eat the chicken on the other side. Ha 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 ha! With that, he limped down the hallway, still laughing. Chef Stew-Rat came up to me.
I should get started on your wedding cake. Stew cake with stew frosting, of course. When will the wedding be?
Never! I yelled at the top of my voice. The Cacklefurs all stared at me.
That Geronimo Stilton is a strange mouse,
they whispered.
Wah! Wah! Wah!
The doorbell meowed.
Meow!
Boneham scurried to lift the drawbridge.
It must be Mr. von Cacklefur,
he said. A few minutes later, a very thin rat came through the door. He was dressed in black and wore a top hat. I had met him before. It was Boris von Cacklefur, Creepella's father. He held out a paw to me.
Hello there, Geronimo, he said. You look well. Too bad. We're having a sale on coffins this week.
Nice to see you, Mr. von Cacklefur, I said. Then another sound rang through the hall.
Wah! Wah! Wah!
Curious, we all ran to the window. Boneham took a pair of binoculars out of his pocket. He looked down.
Cheddar biscuits, he exclaimed. What is that?
I looked through the binoculars. There was a small basket in front of the drawbridge, and it sounded as if the basket was crying. We all ran outside. Inside the basket was a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket. The butler moved aside the blanket to reveal a baby mouse. Moldy mummies! Cried Professor Frankenstein.
A little orphan, said Boneham.
He's so small, said Boris. He's so sweet, said Creepella.
My, he can cry,
said Madame Latoum. Snip said,
he must be
hungry.
Snap said. Chef Stew-Rat clapped his paws together.
He needs some stew!
The members of the Cacklefur family surrounded the baby. The little mouselet stopped crying. He opened his eyes and looked at them all. Then he smiled. All of the Cacklefurs smiled back. The Secret of the Cacklefur Family. We must have a big family meeting, shouted Professor Frankenstein. The entire family gathered in the library. Ladies and gentlemen, rodents and rats, dead and alive, family and friends, began the professor. Even you, Garrett. We must make an important decision.
We have found a little baby. What should we do?
Boris von Cacklefur placed his paw on his heart.
I hate to be a mushy mouse, but this makes me think of a poem by Emily Dickinson. That love is all there is all we know of love.
I felt my eyes fill with tears. What a lovely poem. Boris went on.
We all know the Cacklefur family secret, he said. We love one another. With love, we can do anything.
The mice nodded in agreement.
This little mouselet needs our love, said Boris, and we have plenty to give him.
Creepella stood up.
Let's vote on it. If you think we should adopt the orphan mouse, raise your paw.
Every Cacklefur raised a paw.
This mouselet is no longer an orphan, said Boris. As of today, he is a Cacklefur.
The Cacklefurs all cheered. I took the baby in my paws. What a sweet little snout he has, I said. What will you call him? He needs a name. Creepella passed around a piece of paper. Everyone write down a name, she said. When the Cacklefurs were done, she read the names out loud. Mommykins, Froggy, Howler, Skunky, Skeletino, Creepers, Zigzag, Spider-Rat, Batrick, Scully, Toady, Stewie, Screamer, Igor, Mushmouse, Fester, Spookster, Grimy, Spectre, Dreary, Slimer. Don't you think those names are a bit weird for a baby? I asked.
That's it! The Cacklefur shouted. We'll call him Baby!
Just then, I felt something wet and warm on my jacket. I think the little Cacklefur has done a wee-wee, I said. Our love is stronger than cheese. Chef Stew Rat ran to the kitchen.
I must get him a bottle of stew. It is just what he needs.
I put Baby in a coffin-shaped cradle. Madame Latoum took out her violin and played him a lullaby.
Go to sleep, little Cacklefur. Your family is near. We will all watch over you. To us, you are dear. So go to sleep. Go to sleep if you please. Our love for you is stronger than cheese.
Stew power!
I kissed Baby. Then I decided to walk around the castle. Somehow, the Cacklefurs did not seem so scary anymore. Because I love books, I went to the library. Old, rare books filled the shelves. I flipped through the pages. Some of the books were so old, they were written by monks. What treasures! Before printing was invented, monks wrote books by hand. They illustrated them with wonderful paintings. Then I found a large book on a tall wooden stand. The leather cover was the color of American cheese. The book looked quite old. The title caught my eye. The History of Cacklefur Castle. I sat in a comfortable chair next to the fireplace. Then I began to read. Cacklefur Castle is built on a skull-shaped hill. A blast of thunder interrupted my reading. Bam! The window flew open. A huge oak tree crashed into the room. Its branches were flaming. It must have been struck by lightning. The curtains caught fire. Soon the flames would race toward the bookshelves. All of those beautiful, rare books! I ran out of the room. "The library's on fire!" I screamed. I looked for something to put out the fire with. I pushed open a door and found myself in the kitchen. The cart of stew was right in front of me. I had an idea. I pushed the cart down the hall as fast as I could. When I got to the library, I dumped the stew pot onto the flames. The fire went out, as if by magic. I fell to the floor, exhausted. By now, all of the Cacklefur family had arrived in the library. "What is it?" asked the professor. "What happened?" asked Boneham.
The library,
Snip began, was on fire.
Snap finished.
Geronimo put out the fire.
Shiverine said.
Geronimo is a hero,
Announced Madame Latoum. Creepella beamed. "Good for you, my little batwing." Chef Stew Rat smiled.
That is what I call stew power!
The Cacklefurs gathered around me. Professor Frankenstein slapped me on the shoulder.
You saved the library, he said. You are one of the family now, George.
I sighed. My name is Geronimo. Goodbye, dear Cacklefurs. The sun was sinking in the sky. Yes, all of these amazing adventures happened in just one day. "Get ready, my little cheddar puff," Creepella said to me. "We're going back to New Mouse City." Creepella took my arm and led me to the dining hall. "But we just got here," I protested. Believe it or not, I was starting to enjoy myself. Suddenly, the lights went out. I expected to hear a blast of thunder again. Instead, I heard a cheer. "Hooray for Geronimo Stilton!" When the lights came back on, the whole Cacklefur family was standing there. They had hung a banner in the hall. "Come back soon, Geronimo! Dead or alive!" Shiverine went to the piano. She played the Wailing Waltz. Madame Latoum played along on her violin. Creepella grabbed me by the tail. "This dance is for me, my little spider web." We waltzed around the hall. Candles cast a soft glow of light in the room. "This is my favorite waltz," Creepella said. "And you are my favorite mouse. When are we going to get married?" I remembered Professor Frankenstein's warning and turned pale. Luckily, the professor stood up to make an announcement. "Quiet, everyone!" he shouted. Then he walked over and hugged me. "It's a shame you have to leave, dear Gerbil," he said. "But before you go, we would like to give you something to say. Thank you." Professor Frankenstein gave me a black plaque. There was gold writing on it. "This plaque is dedicated to our new friend, Geronimo Stilton. He bravely saved the Cacklefur family library." Boris gathered everyone together. "Time for a picture!" he shouted. "Say cheese!" I put on my best smile, but then I felt someone pinch my tail. I turned around. Too late! The camera snapped the picture.
"How nice," said Boneham. "Now you will always be a part of the Cacklefur family."
I looked at the picture. "At least my back will be," I said. Creepella took my arm. "Ready, my little pumpkin? It's time to go." All of the Cacklefurs looked very sad. Snip and Snap gave me a small present.
It's for you, Geronimo,
they said. I was moved. Maybe they weren't such bad little mice after all. Thank you, I said. I opened the present. It was a small coffin. How nice, I said. I opened the lid. A small rubber skeleton popped out and punched me in the snout. Whose idea was this? I asked angrily.
He did it,
said Snip.
he did it.
Said Snap. Shiverine brushed away a tear. Can I call you Uncle Geronimo? She asked. I can't wait for the wedding. When will it be? Never! I shrieked. Professor Frankenstein looked at his watch. It's getting late, Godfrey. You really should be going. We will miss you, Gilroy. The name is Geronimo, I corrected him. I knew it was time to go, but I did not want to leave without giving a speech. My dear rodent friends, I began, I just met you, but I feel like I have known you all my life. You will always be... I couldn't finish the sentence. Creepella drove the hearse right into the dining hall. She grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. Time to go to New Mouse City, my little spiderkins. We sped off. Behind me, I heard the Cacklefurs cheer. Hurrah for Geronimo Stilton! He is a strange mouse, but he is a true friend. As rare as fine cheddar. We drove away from the Valley of the Vain Vampires. I realized I finally had an idea for a book. I would call it The Secret of Cacklefur Castle. The Cacklefurs were definitely weird. We were so different, yet they were very close to my heart. I learned something important at Cacklefur Castle. There are many mice who are different from us. But you can't judge a mouse by his or her fur. You must look into his or her heart. If you are lucky, you may find a friend there. True friendship is as rare as fine cheddar. It is a real gift. It is wonderful to discover that the world is full of friends we don't know yet. That is the truth. Or my name is not Geronimo Stilton. We hope you have enjoyed this production of Geronimo Stilton, The Secret of Cacklefur Castle, by Geronimo Stilton. Read for you by Bill Lobley. This program was produced and directed by Paul Rubin. Executive producer Paul Gagné. English translation by Edizione PME. Copyright 2005 by Edizione PME. Production copyright 2010 by Scholastic Incorporated. All rights reserved.